This year's NFL draft brings us an intriguing edge class, but it also brings a new problem for me evaluating the group. One of the key measures I've been using for years now just got a lot tougher thanks to a change in workouts at the scouting combine. So, what do? Well, let's figure it out. An all new IDP focused episode of the Draft Sharks podcast starts right now. Matt Schaff and Shane Hallam of DraftSharks.com here to continue our prospect preview series. This time we are getting into the rookie IDP rankings. We will hit the top edge players on this show, plus a couple of potential sleepers at that position. Then we'll touch on the top of the D tackle group, not typically as high impact a position for IDP leagues, but could get a lot of focus in the first couple rounds of this draft. We're also not only going to talk about who you need to know from this class, but also what you should be looking for in IDP prospects. And I think it matters even more on this side of the ball than it does on offense to look beyond the order in which these guys are drafted next week, Shane, and really focus on some key details that are going to help define what kind of fantasy assets they are for us. What about you on that defense versus offense thing?
I completely agree. I think when you look at these defenders, especially this class, maybe more so, and we'll talk about it on this show and the next show, you have a lot of defenders that are doing multiple things. It's not just, we're going to blitz 100% of the time from the edge. You have guys that are going to play some off-ball linebacker and edge and can rack up some tackles for you as well as sacks. So I think fit within schemes and how these players are well-rounded could definitely determine the order more so than just pure draft capital.
Yeah, and on defense, much more than especially at like running back or wide receiver, you'll get guys who are very good NFL players, but are just not going to be stat producers for us. So they could be high draft picks, they could be effective pros, and they could be lackluster IDP performers. Now, we're starting with the edge group, and these are the things that I typically care about when I'm evaluating the prospects and, looking at guys in the league for who I want to draft year to year. So the most important things on edge are speed score, production, and are you big enough to play full time? So you can be a spectacular athlete, but if you're playing 50% of the snaps, that's going to cap your production. Now, I talked at the top about a new challenge for me with this group, Shane, and that is the speed score aspect. And it's because a whole bunch of these edge players, maybe not a whole bunch, but a bunch of the high level guys skipped running their 40s at the combine. So that either means that we won't get 40 times for some of them, or the guys that do run it at their pro day, we have to figure out how much to penalize it, what that means for speed score. Probably not a huge deal in most cases, because usually if a guy is, fast enough, even just on tape, to get into round one as an edge player and he's productive, then we can overlook what the specific speed score is. But, this is the time of year where we are splitting hairs. So that's one particular hair that's more difficult to split.
And we're seeing that across all positions, but especially in that defensive front, there's just less incentive to run the 40. NFL teams also like to have that speed score, but some of them doing their own testing and bringing in for private workouts. So for these players, I don't know, it's just not the upside to run that 40 time. I think it makes it tough. But like you said, if you're being drafted highly, we'll talk about some of these players. Almost all the top guys are just such good athletes that I don't think that there's much of a difference, unless you're on the clock and you got to pick between two of them, then you want to split those hairs a little bit.
Hey, that's what we're here to split right now. And I don't care about their incentive, Shane. I need those 40 times because I care about it. So we'll start with Abdul Carter, the kind of guy for whom the 40 time doesn't really matter. Looks like he's going to be top 2 or 3 pick in this draft. It really, consensus a top prospect overall in this class. It's just a matter of whether he's the best or he's the third best. And if he were a quarterback, he would be clearly the number 1 pick. Top level production, 6.5 sacks among 11 tackles for loss as a true freshman starter at Penn State. Wasn't even playing the edge at that point. Was really more of a stand-up linebacker and sometimes blitzer. PFF credited him with 20 pressures among just 85 pass rushing opportunities that season. This past year, Carter gave us an FBS best 19.6% pressure rate, according to ESPN stats. Now, recently, I've seen that we're starting to do but here's the red flag with Abdul Carter. And from the Bob McGinn preview on the edge players, there's a quote from a scout saying, he's a Pro Bowl player. He's got everything you're looking for as an edge rusher, but he's not a quality guy. And then McGinn adds, that scout was one of 4 personnel people to express reservations about Carter's makeup. Another said, he's not a great worker. So attitude issues for a guy who's been a star athlete all his life. Imagine that. SI.com's Albert Breer, I thought, had a funny quote on the other side of that, where he's saying that's a stupid reason to not take a top level edge player. And then he points to other top level edge guys in the NFL, says Myles Garrett is a very different guy. Micah Parsons isn't all that well liked in the Cowboys building. TJ Watt is very into himself. With every single one of them, there's something, and I don't know why it's specific to that position, but that's what you get. So maybe it's just becoming one of those diva positions like cornerback has historically been for us. That either in focus or aside, Shane, what do you think of Abdul Carter?
He's my number one overall player in this class. I think he's the best player if you take the positional value out of it. And edge rusher is still a position of value. Just such a smooth pass rusher over the edge. I mean, his bend is so good. He can just kind of dip and go. He has a spin move. He has a swim. He can use power. He plays low. Now, I like these edge rushers that can do a lot of different things to beat you. So he kind of tailors it to the offensive lineman he's going up against. I'm not worried about the injuries. And you mentioned the 6.5 sacks as a true freshman is more than Chop Robinson on the team, who was a first-round pick out of Penn State as an edge rusher. So the highest PFF pass rush grade for any edge rusher in this class with at least 75 rushes. I think Abdul Carter has the complete edge mentality, but does have some off-ball skills. It wouldn't surprise me if you see him drop back. I mean, 85% of his snaps were pass rushes, which is high, but not super high for an edge rusher. A lot of these guys are going to be 98, 99%. So Penn State did use him, drop back into coverage, play the run, set the edge. I think we could get a little more tackles out of Abdul Carter than just he's a sack guy. You have to have a big play league to really have him be worthwhile. So I'm a fan. And in terms of the personality, character stuff, I wrote it about a lot of players on our list that we're going to talk about today. It's just the position. It just kind of is what it is for this class.
I mean, there's something about playing on the edge where you have to trust your skills. You have to believe in yourself. You have to, like, you're doing one-on-one battles every single time you go out, maybe one-on-two battles if you're good enough to draw that kind of attention. So, it kind of helps to be arrogant, and then it's hard to be arrogant on the field and not be arrogant off the field. I would imagine. I can't say that I've ever been at that level with something like that. And, also taking the praise that comes with it. So I would imagine it kind of, it's this self-feeding cycle a little bit.
I think that's what happens with these players. We can go back to T.O. at wide receiver. We can name names, Deion Sanders at corner. If you're really good, then you better have confidence in yourself. You're probably not going to be really good.
And Carter's probably still developing. We talked about how he got there as more of a stand-up player and developed into more of an edge player. We'll see exactly what his NFL team plans. He'll probably be on the edge plenty to put up the numbers that we need. We'll see ultimately what the breakdown is and what the immediate opportunity is, depending on exactly where he lands. But an exciting edge player, probably going to start out high in our IDP rankings, just overall, not among rookies, but overall among edge players, because there's some age among the top edge guys in the dynasty rankings right now, or we could get some replacements high in those rankings. The second guy on our list here is a little bit tougher to evaluate. It's Jalon Walker. And Shane, I was hoping for IDP purposes that Walker was going to project as more of at least a tweener, if not, more of an off-ball linebacker in the pros. It sounds, though, as we've gotten closer to draft time, that he's just widely thought of as an edge player and expected to go early for that facet. He's universally highly regarded. I still have some issues with the transition and what we can expect IDP wise. Looking at your rankings, though, I think you're probably going to wind up higher on Walker than I am. So give me your thoughts on Jalon Walker's outlook.
He's my number 4 player in the class as a whole, but I agree for IDP purposes, it makes it a little bit difficult. He played really that stand-up outside linebacker, kind of the TJ Watt type of position at Georgia, 52.3% of his snaps being pass rushes. So way down from Abdul Carter, way down from the rest of this class. I mean, Georgia, we will talk about Mykell Williams in a little bit, who was more the pin the ears back guy. Jalon Walker was get in the backfield, clean it up, did a little more traditional linebacker things. But when he pass rushes, it's really good. And that's why I think teams are projecting him there. That's going to be a lot more value than putting him, as a weak side linebacker. So I think he can do both. He pursues running backs really well. I think that's why they kind of let him sit back there, work the edge, very disciplined, very smart. I mean, he's long. He has kind of that twitched up body that just quick movements to get around the edge. Really tough to get kind of clean hands on him. Offensive tackles would struggle when he did rush the passer. And so to only be rushing half the time You have 10.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, leading Georgia in both is really impressive. Second highest PFF pass rush grade of linebackers with at least 75 rushes in this class. So I think Jalon Walker could be one of those better NFL players than IDP players, certainly. Probably not going to be a double-digit sack producer at the next level, but is going to change what the offense does because he can work both ways so well, and you don't know what he's going to do play to play.
Very good edge player, very small for that position though. 6'1", 243. Like I remember years ago now when Von Miller was entering the league as kind of a similar prospect. Even he's 2 inches taller than Jalon Walker. I know the wingspan is good on Walker and that'll help. But that's certainly one concern. He also had just 1 year of true starter duty at Georgia. It was 7th most pass rushing reps on the team. So, we've talked about him kind of splitting the time between the edge and actually playing off the ball. And it's good that he was effective in those pass rushing reps, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to project and define what to expect from him in the NFL, exactly what he's doing and what kind of numbers that can lead to. He was an efficient pass rusher, 8 more pressures than anyone else on the team last year, despite ranking just 7th in pass rushing reps, better than draft classmate Mykell Williams, who we'll talk about in a few. Still, I would have liked to have seen more than 6.5 sacks and 11 tackles for loss, tied for the team sack lead, led by just 1 tackle for loss, ahead of teammate Chaz Chambliss, who is also in this draft class, but is looked like is maybe a late round pick. He's very similar in size to Jalon Walker, much lesser of a player. So, I know that stats aren't everything, but I would like to see a guy that is so highly regarded put up more numbers wise, especially if we're looking at just the 1 year of production than what Walker did versus some other guys in his same situation.
I think it's fair. Really, I think Jalon Walker is going to come down to usage, and can he consistently do this if you up that pass rush rate to 80%? Efficiency is great, but holding that efficiency with more pass rush reps is going to be much more difficult, especially at the NFL level. I think probably the hope is if you're in a more tackle-heavy league, Jalon Walker could be a really good defensive end edge player for your IDP lineup, where he's going to clean up a lot of these tackles. They're going to play him off ball. He's going to get to kind of missile to the running back, the stuff that he's good at outside the pass rushing. But in a big play league, I think I'd probably knock him down behind some of the other guys that we'll talk about.
Would probably get some help in his value in a league that scores tackles for loss as well. So if you play in a format that scores those, then maybe Jalon Walker looks better for you. I'm a little worried that he's going to be like Chop Robinson for me, where, an enticing player, going to be a helpful pass rusher in the league, ultimately probably going to be limited in terms of what he gives us fantasy wise. Next guy on the list, Mike Green from Marshall. Didn't give us a 40 time at the combine like most of the top players on the edge, but did run a 4.57, is the best version of the time that I can see outside of the combine. That would be a 115.1 speed score. Very good for the position. Even if we tack on the 500ths of a second that typically goes to a guy's pro day 40 versus combine 40, it would still be a 110.2 speed score. That's more than enough as well for Mike Green. FBS leading 17 sacks in 2024, class leading 23 tackles for loss. This past season, he got PFF's top overall grade among all FBS edge players for the season. Number 2 among that group in run defense, tied for 6th in pass rushing grade, tied for 9th in total pressures, despite having just the 27th most pass rush opportunities. So a very effective pass rusher. I would have liked to have seen more overall production in college. I know the off-field issue at Virginia complicated his start. He didn't do anything there and then lost some time in the transfer to Marshall. I'm not going to ding him for the off-field thing right now unless the NFL does. If he slides to round 2, then, maybe we'll revisit that. But I would really have liked to have seen, especially a bigger first season at Marshall as opposed to just this past year. What do you think of Mike Green?
I'm torn. He has the speed, but he's also super physical. He is violent at that line of scrimmage, the hands, he's popping these offensive linemen. And especially this past year at Marshall, you're playing against a group of 5 offensive linemen that aren't going to be able to handle that for a whole game. They wore down. Mike Green just wore them down. So really interesting ways that he can win, because he has kind of a nice spin move, really likes the chop and go. He's good at stacking up those linemen, then shedding them. My issue with him is he's just very stumpy at the 6'3", 251. He has 32-inch arms, which is the same as Jalon Walker, but he's 2 inches taller. You want longer arms there. And when you see him play against longer offensive tackles, that's where it becomes a problem. He's trying to go and push these guys out of the way, and he just doesn't have the space to do it. I think Green can be a really solid pass rusher, get those sacks, get those big plays in the NFL. But he is like 110% pass rush sometimes. Running backs will run right by him. He doesn't care much about the run. I think in the NFL that's going to be even harder to make that adjustment. So I have concerns. We'll see what the draft capital's like. He could be a player if he does fall to round 2 because of the character concerns that maybe he's worth a higher pick in your IDP league than what the draft capital says as well, if he's going to start for a team. I think there's big upside. I think there's big downside. I think Green's one of the more boomer bust edge players of this class.
And speaking of boomer bust, it looks like he could go anywhere from like 9th overall to like 40th overall, and we wouldn't be shocked either way.
Yeah, I'd even extend that. I think low round 2 is a possibility. Some teams aren't going to have him on the board. Some teams are going to have him very high on the board. It's going to depend on where he falls and where those needs fall.
Yeah, we talked about how in the running back class, we're going to need a lot of sorting by exactly where these guys go in the draft. That's true in the edge class too. There are plenty of players where you can like something and they also bring something that you probably don't like. And then we'll see ultimately exactly where the league sorts them. James Pearce Jr., the next guy we'll talk about here. I love the class leading speed score on James Pearce Jr., elite level there. Ran a 4.47 second 40 at the combine, which I especially love because he's like, I'm fast. I'm here. I'm going to run it. I'm going to show you right now, guys. I don't care what the other dudes are planning to do. 99th percentile 40 time among edge players. 122.7 speed score. That's 97th percentile. I like the college production on Pearce, a 2-year starter at Tennessee, SEC leading 10 sacks in 2023, 17 and a half sacks, 28 total tackles for loss over the past 2 years. My concern with Pearce is he too thin to play full time. He is, I believe, 6'4", but just south of 250 pounds. And he topped out at 55.5% of the defensive snaps in 2024 at Tennessee. So if you're playing less than 60% of the snaps in college, as a proven pass rusher, I'm a little bit concerned about what you're going to do playing time and numbers wise in the pros.
That's my concern too. I think James Pearce is a great NFL player. I think he's going to be a lousy IDP player. I just don't see many teams where you're putting him on the field on that first and second down in terms of rushing downs because of the size. His arms are long enough. At 32 3/4 is okay. I love the pass rush ability. He had the highest pass rush productivity grade of this edge class with at least 75 rushes. That's a PFF stat that combines kind of sacks, hits, hurries, a lot of things that impact the play, even if you don't get the sack or get the tackle for loss. And he brings some power for that size. Just the bend. His first 3 steps are just so quick and get right to the quarterback. No wasted movement. Like Pearce knows how to rush the passer. That's what he's good at. And that's all he's going to do in the NFL. I would not expect you to want him to play the run or play against and run down. So I worry about that for him. He's another player that has those personality concerns that he's not liked in the locker room and has that big head, right? The things we talk about with Abdul Carter, whatever. I think the over-under came out today on Pearce's draft capital of 31.5. So right on the border of the first round, but should be a top 50 pick. I don't think I'll be investing high IDP rookie picks in Pearce with the expectation that you're not going to get a full-time player.
Yeah, it could be the guy too that takes a couple of years to break out, where maybe he is a part-time player early on, because part-time pass rushers have value for their NFL teams. Maybe a couple of years down the road, we get a Nolen Smith build up like we got in Philadelphia this past season. So we'll see about that. We'll see where he goes, and we'll see what his drafting team says about his initial role. Now we are to Mykell Williams, a 4.76 second 40 time. He didn't run at the combine, but that's what we got from his pro day. That would be a 101.3 speed score at 260 pounds, which is pretty good. If we add the pro day penalty 0.05 seconds, that's down to 97.1. So that's okay. He was coming off the season where he sprained a left ankle multiple times. So, it's possible that he wasn't at his absolute fastest, even by the pro day. I don't care so much about that specific aspect. I guess, Shane, let me go to you for what you think of Mykell Williams before I go any further on my thought process with him.
I'm torn. I think Mykell Williams is a pure upside play for NFL teams, right? He's a 5-star recruit had the athletic profile going into Georgia, which we've seen from a lot of Georgia prospects. I mean, on film, he's just not polished or there yet. It's not there. And I think that the production backs that up. Like, it was nice. He led the team as a true freshman with 4.5 sacks in 2022, but kind of, I think, plateaued from there. I didn't really see him get better as a pass rusher. When he makes a play, it's a big play. 32% of his career tackles were tackles for loss. But there's just strings of plays, quarters of plays where he's blocked, he's getting pushed off the snap, he's not doing anything. I think right now he doesn't know how to stack up an offensive tackle and get through him. He's explosive, but doesn't know how to use that explosion. He has 34 and 3/8 inch arms, but doesn't always use that length to his ability. So he's one of those players that needs NFL coaching. If he gets NFL coaching, you see this guy could be Myles Garrett, but he really has not played like it in college yet, which scares me.
Yeah, Mykell Williams is a player and a player type that I'm skeptical of every year entering the draft. He's a tremendous talent. He was not only a 5-star recruit, he was the number 4 recruit nationally in his class. So an elite guy heading into college, but then he topped out at 15 solo tackles as a 2022 freshman. Like you mentioned, just didn't progress from what was an encouraging first season in college. 14 sacks, 23 tackles for loss across 3 years at Georgia, no more than 5 sacks or 9 tackles for loss in any season while he was there. Defenders will say, yeah, but he played through a left ankle sprain last year that he resprained a couple times. And, that's fine. I'm willing to take that into account. But if you're that talented, why was there no spot in college where you just showed that you were dominant? I mean, more than some plays here or there. There's got to be a year where you're like, oh yeah, that's what I'm chasing. As opposed to, no, the tools are all there. He just needs somebody to develop them. Like, if you get all the way through college and you're still that guy, then I'm wary that you're not actually going to become that player. So if you are then expensive to draft in fantasy, then I'm going to let somebody else do it. If you're sliding down and we're just betting on upside at a low risk cost, then fine, we'll take a shot and see.
We saw Nolan Smith play that same role at Georgia and have a lot of that production, despite being much smaller, still very incredibly athletic. So it's not like it's a positional thing. It's not like it's a team thing. I think it's just Mykell Williams needs NFL coaching to get to where he needs to be. And I don't know about you, Matt, but I'm not someone that's willing to, unless I have a deep dynasty roster, willing to really wait on these IDP players to develop, 2-3 years down the line. It's just not worthwhile.
Yeah, that's definitely not worth it in general. And it would be the same concerns for me with Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, who we're not going to, dive into here, but it's the same concerns where the talent's there. Why isn't the production?
Yeah.
If you are digging this IDP content so far, if you're like, hey, why don't you guys podcast more on IDPs, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you're taking it in right now. We've got another IDP show coming next week covering linebackers and defensive backs from this class. There are a couple DBs that are worth getting unusually excited about this year. We'll talk about on that show. You can also find all 5 of our offensive preview shows wherever you get your podcasts. We talked through 2 shows on this deep running back class. We hit 1 apiece on receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. Me, Shane, and Jared all hit the offensive guys. So check all those out before the NFL draft, and especially before your dynasty rookie drafts. Get to know these players and make sure you're in position to take advantage of what there is to target in this class. Before we move on to D tackle, Shane, let's hit some best of the rest type guys among the edge. Hit me with a guy that's not in the top 5 right now, but could be both an NFL and IDP sleeper.
I really like Donovan Ezeiruaku from Boston College. I always have to pause before the last name to get that correct. But he's probably my favorite of the rest. Now seems to be accelerating into the first round as a likely first round pick. Production's off the charts last year, 16.5 sacks in 2024. Boston College was awful in 2023, but he led the team with 2 sacks in 2023, but that had 8.5 in 2022. And so it has this consistency, really long, 6'2", 248, 34-inch arms, was a top 10 PFF pass rush rating among the class. Just really slippery. You really see an offensive lineman get kind of clean hold of him, is able to get skinny through that hole, kind of sneaks past sometimes these offensive linemen to get tackles for loss, to get into the backfield, plays low with those long arms, just becomes very difficult to hit. He's not the best athlete. I think he ended up with an 802 relative athletic score, which is fine. But I think he could go above James Pearce, could go above a Mike Green because he can play the run and do both. Is a 3-down edge rusher that potentially is going to go in the first round. To me, that's someone worth getting excited about.
Yeah, you'd love for him to be bigger, but he's not. But every time I see somebody mention him, it's like, oh, but look how good he is. There's never, I have yet to see, a draft evaluator who's like, yeah, I don't really like him. So you mentioned the athletic stuff. The RAS score, I think, brings in the jumping a bit more than we care about for these edge guys. What I like is, of course, he didn't run the 40 at the combine, so I don't like that. But the 4.62 is the best time I could find for him. That would be a good speed score at his size. Also had a strong 3-cone time, 6.94 seconds. That is historically relevant for the position, especially smaller guys at the position, because Ezeiruaku is not going to power through tackles to get to the quarterback. He needs to get around them. So that means you need to get low, which he already is, and you need to bend and get around that edge. So the 6.94 3-cone time is good for him. The production is good for him, tied for the 6th most pressures among all FBS edge players in 2024. Like I said, size like Chop Robinson. So I wonder if he's going to be able to play enough snaps, but it certainly helps that he's good against the run. That's going to motivate an NFL team to keep him out there more than it will for other guys that are that size. Played the 3rd most total snaps among all FBS edges last year. So I know that's college, but being able to do that at that level is at least a good signal of the possibility of doing that. My guy to add at this position is JT Tuimoloau. I got it. 3-year starter at Ohio State, at Shane's Ohio State, a 5-star recruit, a multi-sport athlete coming into college. I like that about these guys because, it just signals the overall athletic ability, especially a basketball player, which obviously takes pretty good athleticism to succeed in. 11 tackles for loss as a sophomore and first-time starter for the Buckeyes, a conference-leading 12.5 sacks last season, 22 tackles for loss, 9 more than anyone else on that championship Buckeyes team last year, despite facing plenty of double teams along the way. Good size. We've talked about a lot of guys here that are short and lighter than we want. 6'4", 265 is a good size for Tuimoloau. Didn't run the 40 at the combine, of course, because they all met ahead of time and decided not to run it because they would all look stupid next to James Pearce, I guess. 111.4 speed score, though. Even if we add the penalty to his pro day 40, that's more than enough for this guy. So I love the production. I love where he's coming from and how much he played at Ohio State. He could be a sleeper if he goes somewhere in round 2, I think.
I think he should go in round 2. He was moved all over that formation at Ohio State early in his career, played some 3 technique. I think maybe could be more of a 5 tech in that traditional old kind of 3-4 defensive end mold where you have Tuimoloau rushing the passer, but also playing the run really well. He's not overly bendy. I don't think you're going to get this like insane sack production, but the power that he brings to the table with the size, there's no reason to keep him off the field. So when we talk about playing a full complement of snaps, I think that's exactly what you're going to get here.
That sounds along the lines a bit of Jared Verse from last year's class, where there's lots of power, not necessarily a whole lot of flexibility, but, is going to be in backfields, and then we'll see what that means for sack production. Is that fair?
No, I think it's very fair. We saw that last year, that Verse is going to stay on the field because he's going to be able to play the run, going to be able to play the pass. I think Tuimoloau's a similar case.
You can find early Dynasty rookie IDP rankings on the site right now. Those will, of course, get an update after the NFL draft, but it's a good base. It's good to start out with that so we have some expectations, some settings on these players before the NFL draft comes in to shake everything up. So check those out and then, check out the updates after the draft. Moving to defensive tackle right now, I won't spend nearly as much time here because they're just not nearly as important to our IDP leagues as the edge players are. At D tackle, Shane, before we get to the player names, I'm almost all about guys with pass rush upside and with tackle for loss production, because the tackle production, like collecting tackles, obviously matters once they get to the NFL, but it's a little bit tougher to gauge from what we see with them in college. Players play at different spots and all the stat people record tackles differently. So it's just going to get scored differently between the schools. Tackles for loss, though, indicate to me that a player is disruptive, that he's getting through the line and that he's making plays himself from that D tackle spot, as opposed to just setting up the guys around him and behind him. So I think that is a good indicator of a guy who's going to be effective in the pros. One example, Derrick Brown of the Panthers, currently topped out at 4.5 sacks in college his junior year at Auburn, but his tackles for loss there went 9, 11, and 13 over his final 3 years. Not a big sack or tackle for loss guy in the pros, but he has steadily climbed in the tackle category overall, had that huge 2023 production for tackle-friendly scoring leagues. So to me, a defensive tackle who gets in the backfield and makes tackles for loss is what you're looking for.
This class in particular has a lot of players that aren't that way. There's going to be a lot of defensive tackles that are bigger, kind of nose tackles, where we've rarely had noses that the NFL is going to draft high in the past couple years. So be aware of that with draft capital. We're going to talk about some guys here that maybe are going to go in the second round, maybe even third round, but be better IDP picks. I think have more of that disruption potential than even players taken in the late first, early second.
So let's talk about 3 guys that are expected to go fairly early among this D tackle group. We'll start with Mason Graham from Michigan, PFF's top graded overall defensive tackle in this class. Appears headed for at least top 10 draft capital, maybe top 5. We'll see where he lands. Tied for 10th among FBS interior defensive linemen in pressures last year, despite tying for just 20th in pass rush chances. Similar production in his second season the year before. Progressed overall throughout his career, entering the NFL a year early, so that signals to us that the NFL likes him. I would have liked Shane to see a season of 10 plus tackles for loss from Mason Graham. 3, 8, and 7 were his totals his 3 years at Michigan.
It's tough, but he has the skill set, I think, to be really disruptive in the NFL. That's why he's a potential top 10 pick. Every snap, he comes off the snap, pops while he's taking that first step. Interior lineman, really difficult to block when you're getting popped, and he has the athletic ability to make a first step past you. We saw that in the Ohio State game, just relentlessly in the backfield, disrupting things. Even if he's not getting that tackle for loss all the time, another potential first round defensive tackle there in Kenneth Grant, and then probably another top 100 edge rusher for Michigan and Josiah Stewart. So there's a lot of production spread amongst that front 7 there at Michigan. Good range, good hands. He's not like super long, 32-inch arms. So that's probably the downside and why Mason Graham's not considered this universal guy that can be a big disruptor, sack producer. But I think he has the ability to stack shed, to be violent, and has that pass rush upside that we need for a defensive tackle to be productive.
And he's also just shy of 300 pounds. So I think if a team takes him as high as somewhere in the top 10, that signals that they expect him to disrupt the backfield and actually make some plays, as opposed to be a clogger, because you don't draft, sub 300 pound cloggers, especially early in the draft. Walter Nolen up next from Ole Miss, beat Mason Graham in tackles for loss and sacks, near identical in size to Mason Graham, a 3-year college player, 2-year starter, 9 tackles for loss, 4 sacks as a 2023 sophomore at Texas A&M before his transfer, 14 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks last year at Ole Miss. So I really like that production in his final season. And it seems like he might even be rising up draft boards as we get closer.
He's another former 5-star recruit that came in with the big athletic profile. Just didn't quite hit the heights of Texas A&M that we thought he would, though he improved every season. And then exploded at Ole Miss. And offenses noticed quickly. You can see the double teams start very quickly as they realize, this guy's going to be a problem. And then he beats those double teams consistently. That's what I love to see. Explosive, athletic. I think he just needs refined. The hand usage is all over the place. He has a very wide base and can get kind of pushed off. So the inconsistencies there, I think his pass rush grade in PFF in the class with 75 plus rushes was 31st among defensive tackles. So I think there's a lot of upside that we see with that production with Walter Nolen. Just needs honed in a little bit, but I think teams see the picture that they're looking for to get a real disruptor in the middle.
Derrick Harmon, the last defensive tackle we'll focus on here among the top 3. I think he has a shot to climb to the top of this D tackle group in our rankings. We'll see about the draft capital on all 3 of these players at the least. I think, Shane, once this all settles out, I won't see a reason to reach for one of the first 2 guys we talked about, as opposed to waiting on Derrick Harmon if that's where things are going. 6'4", 313, did run at the combine, so trust his athleticism to some degree at least, or he has bad representation and they're giving him bad info. Either way, 81st percentile 40 at the combine. That doesn't really matter. His 10-yard split was just 58th percentile. So maybe we'd like to see a little bit more get off from him, but was a productive college player, especially last year in his lone season at Oregon. 11 tackles for loss, 5 sacks in that season after 3 years of kind of being forgettable at Michigan State. 11 more pressures than any other interior defensive lineman in the country last season, according to PFF. 16th among that group in pass rush chances, so efficient in getting to the quarterback. The reason that I'm maybe more willing to chase that one season of production with Harmon at this position than I might be with somebody who profiles similarly at another position is I'm chasing the ultimate ceiling here. If it doesn't work out, I know that there are, A'Shawn Robinsons for me to find on the waiver wire and fill that in. If he does hit a ceiling, I think Derrick Harmon could be something especially useful in IDP formats.
Not only do you have that production, but he has nearly a 7-foot wingspan that he knows how to use and keep those offensive linemen off of him. I think you're contractually obligated to mention Cam Hayward every time Derrick Harmon comes up. I think that the comp gets thrown around all the time, but that's who he plays like, who can play a little bit of 5 technique and play inside of 3 tech and be disruptive. Where's he going to line up? You kind of have to know where he is and move away from him. Second in PFF pass rush productivity for the defensive tackle class. He just has everything that you look for. He plays high, but he can 2-gap with that wingspan. He can stop the run and rush the passer. I'm a big fan, and it wouldn't surprise me if we even see him go earlier in the NFL draft than a lot of these mock drafts have.
I could tell you're a fan because I saw that you said he goes 110% on every play in your 7-round mock draft. I had to take it out, though, because I'm an editor.
That's true. You love the cliches, man. So
that's right. All right. So those are the top 3 guys we're looking at right now. We'll see exactly what the draft says and how it impacts it. But those, I think, are the guys to be aware of in leagues where D tackles make sense. Any other names that we should throw out as maybe potential taxi squad guys for deeper IDP leagues, Shane?
There's a couple day 2 players that I think have some upside. Darius Alexander out of Toledo is a player that I like a lot. 3.5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss in 2024. Was 24th in PFF pass rush grade for defensive tackles in this class with 75 plus rushes. He just looks the part. Long, explosive. He bends really well. He can kind of dip and get that pass rush, but 305 pounds, he's stocky enough, I think, to play the run and stay on the field. So I think there's real upside with the size, with his length. The Senior Bowl, he struggled on the first day, which sometimes a lot of these group of 5 players or smaller school players do, and then rose to be one of the best defensive tackles there. So I think Alexander's going to get a decent draft capital. I like him. My other name is Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. I think Shadur Sanders still has nightmares about Ty Robinson, who lived in the backfield in that Colorado game, just one step and went. 34-inch arms, 15th in PFF pass rush grade among the D tackles. 7 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss this year. Really only a kind of a 1-year starter player, but really high motor, uses his hands and feet, are always working together, just really hard to stop. He'll try to kind of use his power and overwhelm, but he has the athletic ability to get inside and disrupt not only the pass, but the run. I think Robinson's a real sleeper maybe for a taxi squad player if he goes to a team that has an opening at that position.
Really nice final year line with 7 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. Did spend 6 years in Nebraska, but like I said, this is a position where if there's something to chase, you go ahead and chase it late. It could even just be a post rookie draft free agent edition, but somebody to be aware of. TJ Sanders from South Carolina, another guy I think in that vein to be aware of. A 2-year starter, 17 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, tied for 12th among FBS interior linemen in total pressures last year. Improved his PFF grades versus both the run and the pass in 2024 versus the previous season. Also 56th overall in Shane's 7-round mock draft, which you can find on the site right now. What do you think about Sanders?
Violent, tough. He's tough to get off his spot, and he knows how to use that lower body, kind of his foot and bend, to dip right through the offensive lineman. Like another very slippery pass rusher, but plays really smart. He has a wide repertoire. I wish he was a little bit quicker off the snap, but he kind of makes up for it. So I think he can get a little caught. He's a little bit tight in the hips, like athleticism. I'm not so sure if TJ Sanders is probably why he's not a 1st-round pick. Don't feel like he has this explosive potential, but IDP wise, I think he can rack up some tackles and still has that disruption penetration to do that and be better than he was even in college.
My football coaches in high school always wished I was quicker off the snap too, but once I moved from center to guard, it helped things a little bit. We are less than a week away from getting draft capital and landing spots for all these IDP prospects. Then I'll be adding projections for every guy who matters, and that will power the entire suite of Dynasty tools available at DraftSharks.com. We got the draft war room that's going to help you through those rookie drafts or startup drafts if you're in a brand new Dynasty league. The league analyzer will let you know where you stand versus the rest of your league at every position as well as overall. So maybe you know where you need to improve and what other teams have what you're looking for. The trade navigator will help you get to what you're looking for. It'll help you find the optimal trade partner. It will help you build that optimal trade, and it'll help you evaluate the offers that are bound to come in from other folks in your Dynasty League this time of year when everybody's looking to trade. If you haven't already done so, sync your Dynasty League today to take advantage of everything. Make DraftSharks.com your unfair advantage.